Fios is not cable. We're wired differently, which means you can get the fastest internet available with equal upload and download speeds from 50 to 500 megs. So you can upload 200 photos before your favorite song is finished. Click the ad and switch to Fios today to get our best offer ever.
Blog Talk Radio.
Join us for today's episode of the Utopian Realities Slope, Save Life on Planet Earth Blog Talk Radio show, bringing you solution bearers with practical, proven, scientific ways to help you eliminate global level irradiation and extinction level threats from your body, and bringing forward the means to restore and sustain global waters, air, soil, and sentient life. Welcome. Greetings. This is Lisa Wolf, your host. Welcome to the Utopian Realities, From Concept to Planetary Restoration, Slope, Save, Sustain Life on Planet Earth, Earth Aid, Sunday Solution Bearers Forum, where we give people with real solutions to global crises a platform to inform you, the listeners, about ways to address pressing problems we all face. In looking for real solutions that exist for the extinction level threats we face, we bring forward scientists with technology and with products that remove heavy metal radiation and enable us to maintain health despite the onslaught of chemicals we face. And still, with all the solutions that we have found and are working diligently to see applied rather than suppressed, oddly enough, the most potent and easily accessible solution we have found is this ancient Vedic practice, Agnihotra. Agnihotra is a process of purifying the atmosphere by specially prepared fire. It is practiced by thousands of people all over the world to help undo the effects of pollution, for personal healing, stress reduction, and in organic gardening and farming. It is also used to help neutralize harmful radiation. It takes only a few minutes per day to do and can be learned by anyone, and it is always taught free. Our guest today is Lisa Powers, who is a certified homotherapy teacher, president of the Fivefold Path Incorporated, and editor of Satsang Newsletter. She has been practicing Agnihotra since 1973. She was taught by Vasant Paranjpi, who lived from 1921 to 2008, who was himself the founder and president of Fivefold Path Incorporated and founder and editor of Satsang Newsletter, author and worldwide teacher of Agnihotra, Fivefold Path, and homotherapy. Lisa and her husband Richard are caretakers of the Paramadam Fire Temple in Madison, Virginia, where Agnihotra and other Homa fires are performed daily. Welcome, Lisa.
Oh, thank you, Lisa, so much for having me on the show.
Well, I so appreciate it. It's so important. So if you wouldn't mind, tell us, what is Agnihotra, how you came to practice it and why, and how it can benefit our listeners and truly all peoples in the world, please. And why Sri Vasant called Agnihotra and homotherapy our last chance.
Wow, that's a lot of questions. Well, first, let me start by giving our listening audience just a sort of a visual of what this is. This little practice of purifying the atmosphere through specially prepared fire uses a small copper pyramid that's about 5 or 6 inches in diameter, inverted pyramid, and in that we're going to be burning specific organic substances at sunrise and sunset, along with the vibrational input of Sanskrit mantras. So there's a combination of the certain substances that we're burning, the timing of sunrise and sunset, and the vibrations of the mantra and the pyramid energy itself that produces a very special healing atmosphere. And what people have found, since I've been doing this for so many years, and my husband and I have met people from all over the world, all walks of life, all kinds of background, education, income, religions or no religion, whatever, across the board, people find that their health improves, they feel better energy, they feel less stressed. So this has a tremendous impact on really a person's whole life. Family life can improve. Many people find they sleep better. And it has applications for gardening and farming. And there are healing preparations that can be made from the ash, from burning these substances in Agnihotra. And this is a very specific practice. There is a reason for everything that is done in Agnihotra, for every single thing that's used. And maybe I think later we could explain a little bit more about that. But I wanted to give just a little overview. So this practice itself, sitting for a few minutes a day at sunrise and sunset and making this little fire, it can be done indoors or out, it yields such tremendous benefits. It's really, I mean, from my first Agnihotra, I was just astounded at the effects that I experienced.
So how did you find Agnihotra? How did your life and Agnihotra meet?
Well, it sort of found me. I was living out in the suburb of Baltimore at the time, and in Randallstown, Maryland, there was a small group that used to meet out at a farmhouse. It was just a casual sort of spiritual group. A lot of people there were following the Self-Realization Fellowship lessons from Paramahansa Yogananda. But people would come and talk about different things like yoga, meditation, and stuff on Sundays. It was just a very informal meeting, and a friend of mine had suggested that this would be something that I would probably like, that would be good for me. So anyway, I arranged to go. And one day, Vasant Paranjapet came, and to be honest, his Indian accent was so strong that I could really hardly understand what he was saying, but his energy just struck me. I felt as if I'd never encountered anyone like this before. I was kind of a spiritual shopper, as back in the day in Baltimore, there were a lot of different New Age and spiritual groups just sort of mushrooming in the city, and I would kind of visit all these different groups and philosophies and things. But when I met Sri Vasant, I just felt, okay, I don't know what it is he knows, but whatever that is, that's what I want. So a small group kind of formed when he kept coming to that group, and I started practicing and experiencing pretty tremendous results. My first experience was go ahead.
And how did it happen that Sri Vasant came to this country to teach?
Well, he was directed by his spiritual master to spread Agnihotra all over the world. And that's what he did for years and years and years. And his own story, which is in one of the books that we have available, tells the story of his life and how he traveled and how people just came forward to enable him to do this work. People would offer him, transportation or a place to stay. And for so many years, he circled the globe teaching this work. And as I said, this group in Baltimore, in Randallstown, sort of became a little hub. Well, in time, a business evolved, which was a printing company that I was a part of for part of that time, and it was earning money to support the work of teaching Agnihotra. And we were printing some of the literature as well.
I see. And Agnihotra, this was really a resurrection of an ancient practice, was it not? I mean, when did Agnihotra originate?
Okay, well, of course, the original Agnihotra, this comes from the Vedas, and Vedas means knowledge. And in ancient days, Vedic knowledge was all over the planet. Many people sort of associate it with India because it's rather widely known, but you can find remnants of Vedic knowledge all over the planet. And certainly all the ancient civilizations had some form of purification through fire. So it's just that in the course of time, the science behind that became lost, and then we were left with just remnants or rituals. But originally, these were techniques to accomplish things. These were methods to balance the energy cycles of the planet so that we have harmonious weather cycles so that we have harmonious seasons, so the crops will grow well, all these kinds of things, and for the health and well-being of all the life forms on the planet.
And so back to your early experience, you were going to tell us about the first time that you experienced Agnihotra.
Yes, it was pretty dramatic. I could say that I really had no expectations about this. I knew nothing about it. You have to understand that in 1973, here in this country, there were no brochures about Agnihotra, no websites, no nothing. It's just that, Wasant had come and had spoken about it, and that was it. That was all I had to go on. So in that group, I had said, yes, okay, I'm going to try this. And then somebody was sort of getting on my case, like, well, have you tried it yet? And I hadn't. So the day I decided I was going to start, it was sort of like, oh, all right, I guess I'll do this now. So I didn't have a good attitude at all going into it. And I had just had an argument with a family member. We had 3 generations living under one roof back at the time, and my father was dying of cancer. So we were a very high-stress household. So anyway, I got the materials together. I was up in my room, and, I got the fire going, and I said the mantras and put the rice and ghee into the fire. And in just moments, I felt so much tension just leave. I felt as if something was lifted, and I was really shocked. So that really piqued my interest, and I could hardly wait for sunrise to come, and I could get to do this again. So, from then on, really, I've just practiced it all these years.
And so why did Sri Vasant say that homotherapy is our last chance? And if you would talk about what homotherapy is within the context of Agnihotra.
Okay. Well, homotherapy is the application of homas. Homas means purification of the atmosphere. Purification of the atmosphere through specially prepared fire. So homa, yajna, these words are synonymous. Agnihotra is a type of yajna. It's a type of homa. There are different types of homas. And Agnihotra is this core practice. We say that Agnihotra establishes the basic healing cycle, and then some of the other fires that we teach strengthen that cycle. So homotherapy is the application of these homas to heal the environment, heal different life forms, to heal people, for stress reduction. There's so many different applications for homotherapy. There are ways to help purify water and water resources. There are ways to bring nature into balance and improve crop yields in farming, organic agriculture. There's so many things that can be done.
And also in terms of radiation, why does it help with eliminating or reducing radiation?
Well, there's a lot that we don't really know as far as how this works, but there have been observations, and we'd like to do more research, but we have had findings that Agnihotra has this capacity to neutralize harmful radiation. One of the first indications we had was right after Chernobyl. One of my friends, Karen Heschel, was living in Austria, and they had a farm there at the time. So after Chernobyl, all the farmers were told that they had to submit samples of milk and fodder to the government for radiation testing. So she submitted it, and the inspectors, when the results came out, the inspector said, all the farms of the surrounding areas show contamination. The samples from your farm show only the normal background levels of radiation. Are you doing anything special on your farm? And she said, well, yes, I've been doing these fires, the Agnihotra fires at my farm for many years. And it's just really unfortunate that they were only inspectors and not scientists, because considering all the damage that has happened to our dear planet over the years from radiation, if only they had investigated further, then I think a lot of harm could have been avoided, but that didn't happen. also, I guess it was in, 2014, at University of Kiev, the former Soviet Union, now Ukraine, there were some experiments done. They had gotten some contaminated rice from Fukushima that they wanted to test. But this was at the Physics Institute of the Academy of Science in Kiev. So anyway, they measured the level of the radioactivity. Then they put the rice in a solution of water that was mixed with Agnihotra ash, and then every day they measured it again. And after 3 days, the radioactivity began to go down, and after 10 days, only the background radioactivity was left. The unfortunate part about this experiment was that they only had enough rice, radioactive rice, to do one trial. And of course, one trial does not constitute hard and fast evidence. We've tried to get more samples of highly radioactive rice, but it's not something you can just go on eBay and go on Amazon and get. So we are very open to testing these things because this is such a critical problem. I mean, look at Fukushima. That is not resolved by any means. So, we really would like to pursue this further to make this information more available. And by having more scientific evidence, then that opens more doors. But in the meantime, we're happy with these experiential things, and that it's something that people can do to help protect themselves.
But there have been other studies, have there not, that Dr. Burke and others have been performing, showing changes, beneficial changes?
Well, there have been a lot of different experiments on Agnihotra. There have certainly been tests, starting maybe back in the 70s. They were testing, for example, the bacteria count being reduced in the atmosphere, for harmful bacteria after Agnihotra. And that's a pretty simple thing where you can just do a bacteria count, like on in a Petri dish with agar plates or whatever. So certainly that was found, that harmful bacteria was reduced after Agnihotra. There was a pretty interesting experiment that was done a couple of years ago, and this was done at a college, AIMS College in Madhya Pradesh, India. And it was showing the effect of Agnihotra, just the energy field, on water purification. So they took water from the Narmada River, which of course is going to have all the bacteria and everything that an untreated water source is going to have. And they took these samples. They did a lot of different samples. So some were just placed in open bottles in the room where Agnihotra was performed. Then some were placed in sealed bottles. Then some were placed in sealed bottles inside Faraday cages. And Faraday cages will shield things from, electromagnetic fields. So energy that's at the electromagnetic level is not going to go through a Faraday cage. So the interesting thing was that Agnihotra reduced the harmful bacteria in all the samples. So that, we kind of expected that if it was mixed with ash from Agnihotra, that would reduce the bacteria. And we also expected that the bottles that were exposed to Agnihotra smoke would also reduce the harmful bacteria. But it was pretty surprising that the sealed bottles in the Faraday cages also showed reduced counts of the harmful bacteria. So that meant that some energy from Agnihotra was penetrating the samples that was more subtle than the electromagnetic level. So that was pretty interesting, and we would love to see some more research done in that regard.
And why is it so important to do it at these precise times? What is it about dawn and dusk?
Oh, that's a great question. This is so critical to the effects of Agnihotra. At sunrise, there's a flood of subtle energies that emanating from the sun that reach the earth, where the sun is said to rise. I mean, of course, the sun doesn't rise and set. It's just the way it looks to us. And this flood of energies enlivens and purifies things in its path. So this is a very powerful energy field. This is a very powerful biorhythm that we're using. So by doing this Agnihotra purification at that time, that flood of energies gives it a really great boost. So that's really critical. And, in nature, man is the one who isn't really so aware of sunrise and sunset. If you take plants and put them in a completely darkened room, they will, if you have a little gizmo hooked up to them, they can register a change at sunrise, even though they're not receiving any light. So, the natural kingdom is aware there are changes that happen at sunrise and sunset. At sunset, it's said that this energy flood recedes and that nature is in a state of disequilibrium. And there's a really interesting example of that. If you know anyone who suffers from Alzheimer's, or if you know people who work with Alzheimer's patients, they have a term called sundowning. And anybody who works with Alzheimer's patients will tell you that many patients become disoriented or more difficult right around sundown. So clearly something is happening at that time. There's a change in nature. A lot of people, if they have like a cold or the flu or virus or something, many people find that they feel worse at sunset. So by doing this purification at sunset, that helps to restore the balance again.
I see. And I understand that there are many cases of Agnihotra assisting people with health issues. Can you give any examples of that?
Oh, wow. I would love to. In fact, we have a whole website that is pretty much devoted to that. At some point I will share about some of the key websites that we have. There's one called HOMA, HOMA health.com, and people have submitted their experiences, their testimonials of how they've used Agnihotra and Agnihotra ash, or just the ash for healing purposes. And, we've seen all kinds of cases, just from really simple things to even cases of cancer, cases where the doctor said there's nothing more we can do. There was a case of AIDS that, according to the testing, was completely healed. So it really runs the gamut. And on that homahealth.com website, on one side, there's a listing of different health issues. So people can click on the various issues and then see people's experiences with it, how they use the ash. Also, there's a book that was written by a German pharmacist called Homotherapy, the Ancient Science of Healing. And that gives some very simple instructions for how to make your own healing preparations using Agnihotra ash. And actually, I'd like to tell a little bit about the author of that book. Her name is Monica Koch. She's a retired pharmacist who lives in Germany. And probably back in the 70s, she had started doing Agnihotra and got interested in the healing effects of it. So she noticed that if she applied Agnihotra ash to her pets, if they got like a cut or a scratch or something, that it healed rather quickly. So that piqued her interest, and she started experimenting using the ash and some simple ash preparations on herself, her family, friends, and so on, until now these Agnihotra ash preparations are used by people all over the world for all kinds of things. Many people have been able to get off harmful, commercial medicines, pharmaceutical drugs, and are now able to, they've either been healed or they've been able to just maintain their health using Agnihotra ash and Agnihotra.
So how is Agnihotra then actually practiced? If a listener is interested in learning Agnihotra, what will they find themselves doing?
Okay, so to kind of walk people through it, we have a little copper pyramid. We have to, which on our website we have places where they can be obtained. And in this copper pyramid, we start preparing the fire, maybe 10 minutes or so ahead of time, and these are the things we're going to be burning. One is dried cow manure. The other thing is clarified unsalted butter or ghee. And the third thing is a little bit of raw rice, like brown rice, preferably organic. The more pure the ingredients, then the higher the quality of the results. So there's a reason for all of these. I should talk a little bit about why we're using all these things. The dried cow manure, in many folk medicine traditions, cow manure is listed as a healing agent. Even in Germany, there's a tradition that if a wound is not healing well, they apply cow manure to it, and it's been able to heal some stubborn injuries and things. So there's certain properties to that. It has been found to have some properties regarding harmful radiation. For example, the yogis used to insulate their meditation huts with cow manure so that the rays of the sun would not disturb them. And there was, if anybody's familiar with the book Secrets of the Soil by Tompkins and Bird, they talked about that there had been some people living on the borderlands of the Soviet Union who used dry cow dung to seal their huts. And then when there was radioactive contamination after Chernobyl, they were unaffected. So that kind of piqued a lot of people's interest. Years ago, my husband read in a mainstream magazine that the Russians were insulating their spacecraft with dried cow manure because they found that it would insulate the spacecraft from harmful radiation upon reentry. So there's something very special about this substance, the cow manure. So that's one thing. Then another substance is clarified unsalted butter or ghee. Certainly anybody who's familiar with Ayurveda knows that that's a key ingredient. It's used in all kinds of Ayurvedic preparations. And it's said to be the only substance that when it's burned, it doesn't lose any weight after it's burned. If you weigh the ash and you weigh the original product, they should weigh the same. So I personally haven't done it, but that sounds intriguing. But there's many other things that are intriguing about it as well. It's said also to carry medicine to the part of the body that needs it, and it can be used, I know in Ayurvedic preparations, it's used to draw infections out. So it's a very, very special substance there. And then, of course, the other substance is the rice, and we're using, it's only a very small amount, maybe a third of a teaspoon, so just like 2 pinches of the raw rice, uncooked rice, unpolished, no minute rice or Uncle Ben's. It's got to be the raw rice. And it's said that when it's burnt, it adds some nutritional content to the atmosphere. So we're going to, okay, here we are. We're sitting down a little bit before sunrise. So we have our copper pyramid. So we take a little bit of the ghee and we put it on the dried cow manure. Now, this cow manure is very thin, so that it's going to burn quick. The places that sell it prepare it by flattening it. If anybody's been to India, you might notice that they use dried cow manure for a lot of things there, and there are places where you can see where the cow dung patties are flattened and then they're drying in the sun all over the place. So we take this thin cow manure and put a little bit of the ghee on it, just a little bit, almost like lightly buttering toast kind of concept. Mm-hmm. And then we make a little, like a little log cabin sort of stack of like strips of the cow dung, so that the idea is just so the air can circulate in the pyramid. And then we take one piece of the thin strip of the cow dung with ghee on it, and we light it and put it in the middle. Like if you have the strips arranged in kind of crisscross fashion, then you stick this in the middle, and then the whole thing catches flame. Then at the exact time of sunrise or sunset, then we would say the first mantra, and then after that, after the word swaha, we would put the first portion of rice and ghee in the fire. Oh, I forgot. Yeah, we would have these 2 offerings of rice ready. So we're going to mix these 2 pinches of rice with a little bit of the ghee, just enough to moisten it. And before that, actually, we're going to pick the broken grains of the rice out. So we only want whole grains. Now, chemically, the broken grains and the whole grains are going to be the same, but subtle energy structure of the broken grains and the whole grains will not be the same. And we are working with subtle energies in the process of Agnihotra. So we want whole grains. It's a little bit of rice mixed with the ghee. And okay, it's exactly sunrise. So we pick up the first little portion of the rice and ghee mixture, say the mantra, and then put the rice and ghee in the fire. Say the second mantra, put the second portion of rice and ghee in the fire, and that's really it. And then you just sit at least until the fire goes out. So it might only take 10 minutes.
And how many people now, since Sri Vasant brought this forth, would you say are practicing Agnihotra worldwide?
We don't have any sort of registry or, there's no membership required to do Agnihotra. Anybody can do it. You don't have to belong to any parent organization as such, so we don't really have numbers. But, there's one international portal, which is homotherapy.org, and you can see all the different countries that have organizations that teach Agnihotra. And I'm sure there are, there's at least thousands. I've certainly met with groups from many parts of the world and have attended events in India where we've kind of congregated that served as kind of a gathering place for different practitioners of Agnihotra to meet and share information. So it really is all over the world. And if anyone is interested, if they go to that homotherapy.org website, you can get some idea of the many different countries where Agnihotra is being practiced.
And are you having any success with people doing Agnihotra in Japan itself, in that critical region?
We only know that there's only a small number as far as we know, but we don't really have, here again, language barrier is partly an issue. We don't really have any, any certified teachers on the ground in Japan at this time.
I understand that Andy Topai is getting ready to go back over here shortly.
Yes, and we're hoping, he's doing a little bit of traveling now, and we have invited him if he would like to come here to our center, if he would like to also get a little bit more training, and then he can take back even more. He certainly has been a big help in trying to spread the word over there, and we deeply appreciate his efforts.
So why did Sri Vasant call homotherapy our last chance? What is so important about Agnihotra?
Well, that's a very big question. The thing is, it really addresses all life. It addresses the air. It addresses water. It addresses soil, crops. Really, Agnihotra has the ability to affect all life forms on the planet. And in view of the urgency of the situation, he was prophesying about environmental destruction so many years ago when it was not fashionable to talk about it. And I remember once, it was back like in the 70s, he was talking about allergies. And back then it was like, allergies? What? Some people have hay fever. What's the big deal? Now, I work at a school, and like every other kid seems to have some kind of allergy. So look at, how times have changed. It's that this can address it's like a survival kit, I guess you could say, because it can address all these environmental issues in some way. It's a way of rejuvenating, re-energizing the environment wherever you are. And also there's kind of a cumulative effect. There's the individual effect that a person may experience. Okay, you spend a little time doing Agnihotra. Maybe you just do it when you can, occasionally or whatever. Whenever you do it, if you do it correctly, then people get results. So that's that. But then there are people all over the world who are doing this. This is building. This is growing. It's part of that subtle energy field. So there's your individual efforts that join with all of the other efforts of all the people around the world who are doing this as well.
And so are the effects of Agnihotra are they residual? as well? I mean, if the healing properties remain in the ash, does it last in the environment?
Well, certainly the more Agnihotra is done in a place, then the more profound the effects are going to be, and the more profound they're going to be closer to where Agnihotra is practiced. There are ways to amplify the effects, and that's a special process which is called a resonance system, and that's more involved, and it takes more people participating to support that. But there are many farms around the world that have installed resonance points. So using Agnihotra and other related fires, then you can heal up to 200 acres of property. There's a really incredible story about how the Agnihotra work really spread in South America back, I guess it was in the 80s. They were having a really big problem with the disease Sigatoka negra, and it was affecting banana and plantain crops. And these are staple foods in that area, not only for food but export. So this is a huge deal. The government had nothing to offer. They had no idea what to do. The farmers would use more and more chemicals until it gets to the point where nothing will even grow because the land is so toxic. And God help the poor farmers who have to deal with these horrible chemicals. So our volunteers started going there, and there was one farm where they had a 95% infestation rate of this horrible disease. So in 4 months, they got it down to only 5% using Agnihotra and related fire practices, no chemicals. And 5%, well, I mean, nature's not sterile. You know, you can live with 5%. And many farmers have found that their yield, when they start doing this Agnihotra and these related fires, and that they use the resonance point, install the resonance system, that their yields are improved, the quality, the quantity, texture, taste, all of that improved, and so then the farmers can be more prosperous. But anyway, getting back to what happened in South America, these farmers in the area started getting interested and using the Agnihotra, in this, because we're applying the fires, and we call this homotherapy. They started using it, and they started paying back their government loans. Well, paying back the government loans in that area was like a joke. I mean, nobody expected them to get paid back. The farmers were all doing so horribly. So suddenly these farmers are paying up, and the government officials were like, well, what's going on here? So they went to investigate, and they learned about homotherapy, and they supported it. And we have some letters that have been on our website before showing their support of this, and they gave our teacher, Sri Vasant Paranjapay, they wanted to actually hire him and as a consultant, and he said, I will work for you under one condition, that you don't pay me any money. So, because to him this had to be service. So anyway, the upshot was that he was allowed to come and go as he pleased. So he spent a lot of time in South America teaching Agnihotra there and homotherapy.
Now, I understand that Agnihotra has also proven to be beneficial with the bees. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, a little bit, because I'm not actually so knowledgeable about bees myself. But there was a document, because they did this, again, in Peru. And when I talk about these agricultural results, I would like to mention that, especially in Peru, these observations, I can give websites. There's a lot of reports on homa1.com and, homafarming.com. They have a lot of reports. If you dig deep enough, you can find the technical reports if anybody's interested. But these observations were made by the government employees. Like here we have extension agents. There they're called agricultural engineers. So when you see these reports, it says like engineer so-and-so. So these are not like our own people, just tooting their own horns. These are government officials who made these observations. So, yeah, so there are procedures for using Agnihotra and Agnihotra ash to protect the bees. So anyway, they had, and it was very helpful. So I'm sorry, I don't really know a whole lot about the bees, but if anybody's interested in the reports, I can certainly direct them to that.
They're using Agnihotra in Hawaii, aren't they? And having showing some results there in the garden.
I haven't really kept up with them, but they have a special bee breeding project, and I'm really sorry that I just haven't really been in touch with them, but they certainly are using Agnihotra there in conjunction with their beekeeping. I do know that in South America, when they were doing this in Peru, they found that the quantity of honey was increased, and the quality of the honey improved as well.
Wonderful. And what's there's an Agnihotra Center in Poland and community?
Yes, there's a really wonderful one there, and so much incredible stuff has happened there. And I'm just remembering one really interesting story that happened about tomatoes. Well, actually, when they first went to the farm, when they first bought the land, they felt guided to choose this spot, and it's in a pretty mountainous area. And it's not too far from Krakow, Poland.
Uh-huh.
So when they went there, they had whatever their equivalent of extension agent come out, and they had the soil tested and stuff, and they said, I'm sorry, but you can't grow anything here. So they were not daunted, and they proceeded. They grow all kinds of stuff there. They have very lush vegetable gardens, herb gardens. They grow herbs for healing, and they make up medicinal tea things and sell them there. And it's been a really wonderful, amazing farm, and everybody comments on the energy. I have visited there in the earlier years, and it's a very powerful energy vortex there. It's really quite incredible. But there was a really funny story about the tomatoes. That was one thing that everybody insisted they would not be able to grow there. Well, not only did they grow them, but they were so superior, and they wanted the restaurants to buy them. So when they took samples into the city, at first people weren't interested. They had their own suppliers or whatever. But later they came back and they said, yes, we want your tomatoes. The other farmers were using such toxic chemicals that when the restaurant workers would cut up the tomatoes, it would burn their hands.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, pretty bad. So when they found out about these organic tomatoes, they were quite happy to switch.
I would think so. So, how is a farm then set up to do Agnihotra or to do home farming? It's a little bit more involved, but
to do a resonance system, what we call that's to really do large areas. Then they would want to install a resonance point, and that's a special procedure that not a whole lot of people are trained to do, and it involves placing a number of pyramids at certain points, and so there's a resonance effect that's happening between the different pyramids. But there's a place where Agnihotra is performed every day, and then there's another place where hopefully 4 hours a day of another healing fire, Om Trumbakam Homa, is performed. People can come and take turns performing that. And if possible, if the personnel is there, then on no moon and full moon days, people take turns and perform up to 24 hours of these yajnas. So this is generating a very powerful atmosphere. And this is cover, as I said, up to 200 acres. So this is amplifying the effect. Also, in the place where the Om Trumbakam Homa is performed, we like to make a little space so that visitors can come, and then if people are suffering from health issues, many people have found that they feel better by sitting for Agnihotra and sitting for this Trumbakam, that's a beneficial thing to do.
Right.
Lisa, there's one thing that I didn't talk about before, and I'm kind of jumping around, but I think it's so important, and it hasn't come up yet. And I wanted to talk a little bit about how Agnihotra affects the mind.
All right.
Because a lot of people say, well, okay, you're burning this stuff. Well, what does that have to do with the mind? And in this ancient Vedic knowledge, they say that there's a connection between atmosphere, prana, and mind. Prana being the life energy that connects us to, the cosmos and everything it is. So this knowledge says that whenever you make a change in the atmosphere, then that affects prana, and that affects the mind. So even if you burn a piece of paper, it makes some change in the atmosphere. Well, certainly when we're in heavily polluted environments, people tend to feel more tense, feel more stressed. Physically, we feel bad, but also, there is an effect on the mind. People do feel more stressed at those times. Then you go out to the country and you feel better. Well, you're still the same person you were when you were in the city, but so what's changed? Part of that is that the atmosphere has changed and you feel better. So by purifying the atmosphere, this brings about a beneficial change in the functioning of prana, and then automatically this gives a push to the mind. It unburdens the mind. So we say that prana is affected, the functioning of prana is affected by pollution. So by purifying the atmosphere, this harmonizes the functioning of prana, and this results in unburdening of the mind. And people across the board have told us that they feel less stressed. Many people find they sleep better. And when you can affect the mind, this has such a tremendous impact on a person's health. That can affect everything. So that's a really critical benefit from Agnihotra.
So if someone wants to incorporate Agnihotra into their daily life, what do you suggest that they do?
Well, I would say, first of all, to contact us. You can go to the website, agnihotra.org, and there's contact information. There's a tutorial video of how to do it. We can find out about how to get the supplies. It's not rocket science. A person can learn it. When I personally am teaching it, and I really tend to go into a lot of detail and depth and background, it's an hour and a half. And certainly people have ordered the supplies and looked at the tutorial and read the instructions and have just, started practicing on their own. Also, we have kind of a loose, I wouldn't say a directory, but sort of, we kind of are aware of people who are well-versed in Agnihotra, and we're also aware of a number of people who have come forward who say they would be happy to assist newcomers who are learning Agnihotra, and we also know who are certified teachers. So if possible, and if the people are interested, we like to connect people to a contact in their area, if someone is available.
So in the best of all possible worlds, if there was widespread practice, say, across North America of Agnihotra, what might we expect to see?
Oh, I think we see a very different scenario than what we have happening right now. Well, certainly people's health would improve, and health is a great factor for happiness, so people's lives would improve. We would see less stress and tension. In families where I see this performed, many people experience more harmonious family relationships, and think of what an impact that has on people's happiness. It's huge. So we have better health, better happiness. We could see better, the environment. Many people have written to us to say, well, when I started doing Agnihotra, the plants in my garden started doing better, the plants in my apartment started growing better, all this sort of thing. So we're going to see improvement in the environment. If there's enough, also there are ways that Agnihotra can be used to help to purify water resources. Many years ago, there was a family that had a farm, and they had a well that was not usable. The water had become polluted over time. But after they started doing Agnihotra on the property, the well cleared up. So there's some balancing that takes place when Agnihotra is performed on an ongoing basis. And also, Agnihotra ash can be added to rivers and streams and other, bodies of water also to help to bring it into, purity and bring it back into balance. So I think it would be pretty much heaven on earth.
That's pretty amazing that it can go directly into rivers and streams. Have people been doing that you know of?
In different places. I do know of people who in certain places from time to time who do that.
And talk some more, if you wouldn't mind, about Agnihotra's effect on the nadi system, on the body and breathing.
Oh, okay. This is actually another reason why we do Agnihotra at exact sunrise and sunset. This is a little in depth, but anyway, bear with me here. In this ancient knowledge, we say that all of our breathing is connected to the phases of the moon, and our breathing has an effect on what's called the nadi system. Now, this is a subtle energy body that is on our physical body, according to this ancient science. You could think of it as something sort of like a nervous system, but more subtle than the nervous system. So if this nadi system is functioning harmoniously, then we're going to be healthy. So this ancient tradition says that if you wake up before sunrise, your breathing will be adjusted in the best way, according to the phase of the moon, so that your nadi system will function correctly. We're not always breathing through the same nostril. Sometimes we're breathing through the left nostril, sometimes the right, sometimes through both. And there's a difference in the effect on the body, whether you're breathing through the right nostril, left nostril, or both. For example, even though the air is the same, there's a difference. It has a different effect on the nadi system. For example, they say that if you've eaten a heavy meal, you should lie on your left side, and that this helps digestion. This has a different effect. Then if you have a cold, it's recommended to lie on your right side, that this will help to speed your recovery. So this knowledge says there's different effects on the nadi system according to your breathing. If you get up before sunrise, your breathing will be adjusted automatically, and you'll be breathing through the correct nostril for optimal health. So we're doing Agnihotra, and then that means we have to be up a little bit before sunrise, so automatically the nadi system is adjusted. And it's really well known in a lot of cultures about getting up before sunrise. I mean, I've talked to people from different parts of the world, and in many traditions, that's a well-known thing. It's something that is recommended. And even like, the old proverb, early to bed and early to rise makes a man healthy, wealthy, and wise. So that concept has been around for a long time. So this is yet another aspect of the importance of doing Agnihotra at sunrise. It has a beneficial effect on the nadi system.
And there's so many people who are being vegan, vegetarian right now, and I know sometimes people will ask you, well, can I use coconut oil or some other kind of oil, and why is it so important to use ghee and not to substitute the oils?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm glad you brought it up. As I mentioned before, ghee is a unique substance, and it has been said that it's the only substance that, when burned, does not lose any weight. So there's something special about that. In Ayurveda, it has certain properties, healing properties. It's a key ingredient in Ayurvedic medicine. So there are certain properties that the ghee itself has that the other substances aren't going to have. It's a very special substance.
And I have, people, I've been doing Agnihotra, thanks to you and Richard, for some months now, and often using the ash in my water. And people say, how can you be consuming cow dung, but it's not the same. It's not the same before and after, is it?
Well, you have to realize that this cow manure has burned at upwards of 600 degrees, so there's certainly no bacteria present in the Agnihotra ash. Plus, you have the subtle energy there's the energy of the pyramid. I guess it was back in the 80s, there was a lot of interest in pyramid power, and people were doing a lot of experiments with pyramid-shaped objects and placing produce, fruit, vegetables, whatever, under pyramids and finding that it would stay fresher longer. People were sharpening razor blades under pyramid shape. So there was a lot of interest back then, and the point was that there's some special energy connected with pyramid shape. So you've got a lot of different aspects of what's producing these effects from all the ingredients that are burned. You've got the healing effects of the copper, and copper itself in Ayurveda is considered a healing substance. Actually, they say that there's very little difference in the healing effects of copper and gold, but considering the difference in the price, we'll just go with the copper.
Right. I know that there's a gentleman in India, I think Gaurav Vyas, and I think presently he's trying to teach people over there how to make the is it called the Homa Kund, the base out of cow dung and mud, and it sounds like it's an incredibly complex thing to determine the size of the stand itself.
Go ahead. Okay.
No, that's okay. Go ahead.
Well, I would like to clarify that everything that I've talked about today, the effects of Agnihotra that I've mentioned and the way it's performed, I'm only speaking of this method. There are many, many different kinds of fire ceremonies, and I'm not qualified to speak about them. But my experience is in this particular method, which is simple, which the everyday person can use for his or her benefit, that is not hard to learn. The materials are not complicated, the procedures are not complicated. So that's all that I can speak about. And there may be other ceremonies and practices, but I can't really speak to them. And actually, about the Agnihotra pyramid that we use, there were some tests. Actually, Eastern European scientists got interested in Agnihotra back in the 80s. Well, you've talked with Dr. Ulrich Burke, and he was in touch with the scientists over there and actually still is. So for some years he's been doing that. And they did some experiments with larger pyramids and, thinking that would amplify the effects, but it actually didn't. The best effects were from this pyramid size that we use, which is maybe about 5 inches high and about 6 inches across.
And was that the pyramid that Sri Vasant brought?
Yes, that was what his teacher had advised. Oh, I'm sorry. Oh, my husband is correcting me. I'm sorry. He said, what is it? 2 1/4 inches high? Okay, my bad. Okay. so I actually somebody once said that just looks like a big ashtray. So it's not all that large. But the size and shape has to be correct. And also, we also were warned that the sides of the pyramid need to be intact. Like sometimes for other ceremonies and things on the market, we've seen copper pyramids that had handles stapled to the sides. Well, then that means that the pyramid shape has been punctured. So the pyramid itself is not intact. So the subtle energy effects aren't going to be the same.
Right. And so, as far as using other oils, again, why not coconut oil or, I mean, how do you, people who are trying to be vegan and, concerned about using animal products, does that?
Well, one thing I will say, we really do advise that people use for the ghee if they're making the ghee themselves, to make it from organic butter, and we want the animals to be treated well, that sort of thing. I realize that is a concern. In fact, we even have sources where we specifically know about how the animals are treated and that sort of thing. We have sourced that for some people, but also ghee is said to act as a carrier for subtle energies, and certainly the cow is a very unique animal. There's certain properties of, as we said, that the cow manure has certain qualities, and also the ghee, which is made from cow's milk, there's some special qualities there about the ghee.
And is there something about rice giving nutritional input to the atmosphere?
When that's burned in the Agnihotra process, that's the part of the function of the rice. But there's another way of looking at this too. We could say that all of the kingdoms of nature are involved in Agnihotra. For example, they're all represented in Agnihotra. The copper of the pyramid represents the mineral kingdom. The rice represents the plant kingdom. The cow manure represents the animal kingdom. Man is the performer, then the fire is the connecting link to the higher levels. So we have a complete cycle going on in nature, when Agnihotra is performed.
Right. And
actually, if I could talk a little bit more about that. So when we put the rice and ghee into the fire, you would chant the mantra and put the rice and ghee into the fire, a channel is actually created in the atmosphere that reaches up it's said to reach up 12 kilometers. So that's going up into the atmosphere. The solar energy is captured. So the sun's rays from sunrise, so it's capturing the energy coming from the sun at that time. The pyramid is like a receiver and transmitter of the subtle healing energy. So then energy is thrust out from there into the atmosphere. It can reach the soil, the air, the water resources. And it gives a feedback effect to the plants in the environment. So energy is being thrust into the atmosphere. Then, as I said, this channel is created, and prana is drawn down through this channel toward the pyramid. So, and this prana, this purified prana, this is bringing very energizing and life-sustaining energy, which is why people find that the environment becomes sort of enlivened and healed and energized where Agnihotra is performed. I don't remember the exact place. I'd have to look it up. But there was a farm many years ago. Well, it wasn't actually a farm. This property it was pretty much a desert area, and this woman who owned it would just practice Agnihotra there when she could, and that's it. She wasn't applying any fertilizers or anything, but the property was just blooming and thriving, and the local people were referring to it as the botanical garden. It made such a transformation. So how does this happen? If she's not putting something into the soil, the plants are getting it from the atmosphere. And Rudolf Steiner also said that, and I don't remember the quantity, the percent that he said, but that the plants get more of their energy from the atmosphere. They're not getting so much from the soil, but more from the atmosphere.
Right.
Oh, there's one thing. Go ahead.
No, go on.
Okay, I just remembered this hadn't come up, but I did want to mention this. It's kind of jumping around. I know a lot of people nowadays are concerned about the effects of EMFs, the electromotive force, and, from like the transformers and all that sort of thing. Well, the Agnihotra farm in Australia had a really interesting experience. And they're in Hunter Valley, New South Wales. And some people are very sensitive to the radiation of high voltage power lines. And they've noticed with great surprise that their Agnihotra hut is positioned right under an electric power transformer. But when they go inside the hut, they've all said that they don't experience any EMF distortion. So anyway, a friend of theirs brought with him an EMF tri-field meter that would measure the magnetic outputs, so they could measure the EMFs on their property. So the results confirmed what people had been experiencing over the years. But I mean, admittedly, it was done on a casual basis and not according to strict protocol. But still, anyway, this is what happened. Their friend Jake said that the EMF meter would measure high readings around power transformers. So they asked him to take a measurement right under the transformer next to the meter box, which is right next to the fire hut. To their amazement, the dial on the meter didn't move. It just stayed on nearly zero. So it wasn't until they moved about 50 meters away from the fire hut under the power lines did the meter start to show, any of that energy. So then they held up a glass of water that had been mixed with Agnihotra ash over the meter to see if that would make any difference. And then when they did that, again, the dial plunged close to zero. And the other thing that they noticed was whenever these two people, these are people who've done these fires for many, many years, whenever they moved close to Jake, and he was there with the meter, the dial would go down. And they remembered that Sri Vasant had said that the energy fields of consistent Agnihotra practitioners would be healing. And Jake had not been practicing regularly. So when he would go near the, where it was registering EMF, then when he was there, it would register. But then when my friends, Fritz and Lee, who were longtime practitioners, would go near him, then the meter would go down. Then the last thing that they tried, and it was kind of funny, then they had Jake drink the Agnihotra ash water, and again, the dial moved down close to zero. So clearly we're working with subtle energy here.
Right. I had someone suggest to me a few weeks ago to put Agnihotra ash onto my cell phone to block the, the EMF frequencies coming off. And it's hard to know. It occurs to me, and with one of the people that I'm dealing with, I recently sent a hair sample to Bobby Oren of Folium PX, and I'm looking forward to getting the readings. I would think that would also be a beneficial study to do, in relation to Agnihotra, would be to begin, getting base measurements from people, and then taking readings later, after doing Agnihotra and, consuming water with Agnihotra ash. That could be a beneficial way to gauge as well, I would think.
That sounds very interesting. That could be very good.
Doesn't that sound like a good idea?
It does. It definitely does.
Yeah.
Oh, Lisa, there's one thing we haven't talked about. We did talk about Agnihotra's effects on the mind and, reducing tension and stress. And there's such a vital aspect of this that I would love to emphasize, is that Agnihotra is a very great tool in overcoming alcoholism and drug de-addiction. On the homahealth.com website, they have some testimonies about this. But this is, such a scourge in our society. And, drug addiction and alcoholism are like such a vortex, and how they affect the whole family, the community. The effects can be very, very far-reaching and so devastating to so many families around the world, really. So I would like to, one way of looking at addiction is, I heard someone once describe it as addiction is what you put between yourself and the pain in your life. So
Right.
if you can alleviate some of this stress, some of the burden, some of the tension, then this is reducing that hold, that craving, that urge for the drugs, for the alcohol, and it has certainly been a help to people in overcoming alcoholism and drug addiction.
Well, do you have any stories about that, anecdotal, about how
actually, I have known people, in a casual way who actually, in the early days of Agnihotra, that's how a number of people came to Agnihotra. They were looking to get out of drugs, and this is how they did it. So at least that was the first step. I would say that it's not that hard to detox the body, but it's a lot harder to heal the mind. You can dry the body out in a number of days, and there are certain techniques and fasting things and stuff you can do to get the drugs out of the body, but the mind is really the heart of the matter. So this is, I think, if a person is going through some kind of a de-addiction process, to have, if they're doing Agnihotra also, then this is going to fill that gap, because the mind has to learn to work in a different way. And certainly to unburden the mind. Many people through their, during the time of addiction, have caused great pain and suffering in their lives, in their family lives, and so forth. So there's a lot to overcome, and all of this, affects the mind. So if we can start healing the mind, this can go a long way towards a lasting recovery.
this is true.
And I do know people who have gotten off drugs through this.
And just by doing the Agnihotra, by consuming the ash as well, by being in the environment?
Well, actually, we don't actively have this, a place that's doing this now, but I have a friend, and I think you've spoken to him before, Dr. Barry Rathner, who lives at Eco Village Brugorania in Poland, and he has worked with people in the field of de-addiction. So we used to actually have a center in Baltimore where people were coming for residential treatment, and we had using a 12-step program and Agnihotra. People were participating in that, also participating in additional healing fires, and it was a total package. But if anybody is interested, I would be happy to provide ways to get in touch with Dr. Rathner to advise about how they could carry this out in their own setting, wherever they are.
That would be very good.
I would not say it is easy. I would never say it's easy, but it can be done.
Would you please let people know how to get in touch with Barry?
I don't have my computer up, but if anybody writes to us at info@agnihotra.org, I would be happy to give that information.
So tell us. Let's go back to the beginning, and let's return to Sri Vasant and his teacher, and how it came forth that this truly great mercy was brought forth at this time. Can you talk more about Sri Vasant and his teacher? And
I can, although I would also like to preface this with just a reminder that anyone, anywhere can do Agnihotra, regardless of whatever your background, whatever your faith or lack thereof. if you have a guru, if you don't. I've known people from all different faiths and backgrounds and so on who practice Agnihotra. So no one has to become a follower of, Sri Vasant or his teacher, any of that. So that's, this is only a little bit of background information, and we often don't even mention it. But his teacher took a vow, this is back in the 1940s, and said, I will resuscitate the Vedas. And that was his work. And then Sri Vasant was his disciple, and then in the early 70s, he blessed Sri Vasant and sent him forth to spread Agnihotra all over the world. And he was told, I may not be getting the words exactly right, but he said, my children are ready and you will meet them. So he traveled around the world and he really did find that the people were ready for this, even though it sounded very strange at the time. And people stepped forward to provide the way for him to travel, places for him to teach, accommodation, and for years and years, we're talking very low budget travel. This is no Rolls-Royce guru or anything like that. And staying in people's homes and always went to the poor people. That was really a hallmark of his work. And Agnihotra is always to be taught free. We were told that Agnihotra is always taught free, and if anyone shares Agnihotra ash or makes up Agnihotra ash healing preparations, those are always to be given free. No one is ever supposed to charge money for them. It should be a service. Right. And really, this knowledge, this is Vedic knowledge, and the Vedic knowledge belongs to mankind. This knowledge was all over the planet at one time. So it belongs to all people. So it should be given freely.
So, and you have people of Judeo-Christian practice or heritage. How do you, I'm sure you run into some people expressing concerns as to whether or not, it fits in with their religion or their beliefs. How do you address that?
Oh, absolutely. Well, for one thing, there are several Bible verses that I think can be helpful in talking about Agnihotra. And one thing is it's Daniel 8, verse 26. And this is in the Good News Bible. I have to say something about this translation. The Good News Bible, the whole purpose of that translation was to be very, very accurate about the meaning of the original text. So, in the Good News Bible, this verse, Daniel 8, verse 26, says, this vision about the evening and morning sacrifices, which has been explained to you, will come true. But keep it secret now because it will be a long time before it does come true. So, many people feel that that's referring to Agnihotra. Now, the King James Version of the Bible doesn't have that key word, sacrifices. But the Good News Bible, which focused on exact, accurate meaning, has that word, this vision about the morning and evening sacrifices. So many people feel that that refers to Agnihotra. Another really important Bible verse is, ye shall know, this is Matthew 7, 16 through 20. It says, ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns or figs of thistles? Even so, every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down and cast into the fire. Wherefore, by their fruits ye shall know them. So what are the fruits of Agnihotra? People experience better health, reduced stress, which often improves family life, better farms, garden crops, purity of water resources, rejuvenation of plant life, healing the environment, healing the creation, which is really, for many Christians, this aspect of stewardship of the world, stewardship of God's creation is a very important issue. And also, when you add into that, Agnihotra's properties in helping people to overcome drug and alcohol de-addiction, clearly these are good fruits. So according to that Bible verse, clearly Agnihotra is something good. And then there's another verse, which is Romans 12, verse 2. Be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind, that ye may prove what is good, acceptable, and perfect will of God. So, be ye transformed by the renewing of your mind. Certainly, when we talk about stress reduction, the peace that people feel from doing Agnihotra, I'd say that is certainly renewal of the mind. So, those are just some Bible verses that I like to share with people who are very strong in Christian beliefs. And I think most of the time that makes sense to people.
And are there changes in people's lives that they need to take to commence Agnihotra in terms
people
of their...
People can start as and where they are. There's no prerequisite kind of thing. If you're, smoking and drinking and using drugs and whatever, you don't have to follow any special diet. Anybody can do Agnihotra. But I will say that many people, when they start doing Agnihotra, they find that what they feel themselves are harmful habits, destructive habits, often fall away. Many people have quit smoking. I've known many people that quit drinking. Actually, in my early days of Agnihotra, in 1977-78, I spent time in India with the man who later became my brother-in-law. We were spreading Agnihotra among the poorest working class in India. They're known as the Harijans. These are the people who do heavy labor. They are not beggars. They work very, very hard. They're laborers. They have very hard lives. And they used to be very badly discriminated against as well. So anyway, my brother-in-law, David, he's my brother-in-law now, started working by Agnihotra to the children in these communities. And the children learned it and practiced it in their homes. And the fathers who were suffering from alcoholism started to get healed. They didn't feel like drinking, and they were able to, just kind of let go. They started feeling better. Now, alcoholism is a horrible thing in any case, but for these people, this was a horrendous thing because they were desperately poor to begin with. Alcohol was expensive, and they would get paid, say, twice a month, and they'd go out and blow it on alcohol. This is devastating to the family. So,
right.
Okay, now we have the kids doing Agnihotra, and then the fathers are getting healed. Well, then the fathers are noticing this, but then the fathers got interested. So now, actually, my brother-in-law goes back there and to the same area where he was teaching, and it's really a very nice community. His family loves to go there. I've heard my nephews have said it's their favorite place to go in India. Very peaceful, and life is so much more harmonious than it used to be before Agnihotra. So that was a tremendous change.
Well, there are other stories, aren't there, of the practice of, besides the experience of Karen after Chernobyl, of Agnihotra restoring lands. Some pretty remarkable, aren't there?
Well, there are so many farms that have started, doing Agnihotra, especially in South America. They've increased their productivity, and the quality of the produce has improved, and all this sort of thing. So, really, kind of across the board. We had a funny incident once here in Madison with a local farmer. I guess we were going out there to get cow manure, and they had a cow that was sick, and the vet had said, there's nothing more they could do. The cow was going to die, and I think it had some sores or something. The hair was falling off it and everything. So my husband advised them to use Agnihotra ash on this cow. I don't know if the cow was just ingesting it or if it was also being applied externally. Well, okay, there goes my husband's chiming in. Yeah, they did both. And the cow got healed. So, anyway, they sold the cow, and that was that. So there have been so many experiences, because we've been in touch with people all over the world. Hey, Lisa, you should share your experience. Remember, you told me that you had sent some ash to, oh boy, I can't remember the man's name, who had the radiation burns. I think you should share your story.
Well, he actually related it on that conference call, and I just caught the tail end of it. I know that this gentleman, Keith, out in California, he had sores that weren't healing, and I sent him some Agnihotra ash, and you can actually tell the rest. I was amazed because I think it was, the call was about 3 or 4 days after I sent the ash to him. And what did he say?
Well, he said that he was using the ash and that they were healing. These were radiation-related burns from cell phone, using a cell phone in the car, plus he had the cell phone like where there was metal. Like I think he had his metal keys near the cell phone and also his metal pens, and that had some effect of making it even worse. So yeah, after he said for a year and a half he had been trying to heal these to no avail, and he finally got improvement from applying the Agnihotra ash that you sent him.
Yes. Yes, and I think he just mixed it with water, I believe, and applied it directly. Although generally it's recommended to mix it with ghee, isn't it?
Well, there's a number of different preparations that you can make, and let's see on the homahealth.com website, they give the instructions. You can find a link to Monica Cox's book that it gives directions for ways of making different healing preparations using Agnihotra ash. Some people apply the ash externally. You can take it internally. You can mix it with ghee. Some people mix it with honey. You can mix it with water. It depends on what you're trying to heal too. If you have a sort of a wet wound that you're trying to dry up, you might just use the dry powder. If you're trying to draw an infection out, you might use Agnihotra ash mixed with ghee. So there's different preparations for different uses.
I see. And how does one take it internally, and some people put it into their food as well?
Some people do. I don't care for the texture. I don't really want to go that way. But for years, I've taken about a third of a teaspoon of Agnihotra ash 3 times a day. And, my family has, been very healthy. And I know everybody's different. And, but I do believe that has been a factor in our good health. Oh, wow, I know a story I forgot to tell about was what happened, excuse me, the Union Carbide chemical disaster in Bhopal, India in 1984. Wow. There were a couple of families who were right there in the affected area who regularly performed Agnihotra. So when that started happening, they closed up the windows and everything to their house, and they started performing. There's another healing fire that is done by many Agnihotra practitioners, which is an ongoing thing, where you're just putting like 1 drop of ghee into the fire at a time, as opposed to Agnihotra is just over with in a few minutes. So they kept that fire going for quite some time. So they came through it fine, no harmful effects. But, thousands of people died in that. That was such a horrible catastrophe. And these 2 families, since they were okay, were able to help in some of the recovery efforts and things in the aftermath of the disaster. And that's you can even look that up online. There were newspaper articles. It was documented.
Wow, that's absolutely tremendous.
You know, in South America, in Peru, there's a hospital called the Turiasu Clinic, and this is like a 5-story building. This is not just a little rinky-dink clinic. And Agnihotra has been performed there. I think it might be just once a day, and the patients come. Maybe it's in a courtyard or something, and the patients come and attend Agnihotra, and many people have reported that their symptoms are lessened, they feel better, and all that sort of thing. On that homahealth.com, there are many reports from that place.
And are there any reports from India of how Agnihotra is helping farmers there?
There are quite a few reports, and that's on the let me get the right website. That's on the homafarming.com website. There's a lot of documentation. One farmer in particular, Abai Desai, has had reports of how his crops increased. He was very successful. He was concerned initially about making the transition from conventional farming to organic, but he was able to do that with homotherapy, and it has had quite a profitable farming operation.
Wow. So it's really changed your life, and how would you like to see things going forward? If envisioning healing, I mean, what could you envision?
Well, I would love to see more Homa centers all over the place and more Homa farms. And we have a network. There is an international net, and all of us in our respective ways are trying to get the word out. We try to share, we try to demonstrate it and teach it wherever possible. Basically, when people invite us to talk about it or to demonstrate it, we go if it's at all possible to do that. I would like to see more young people getting involved, and yet I think sometimes young people have to find their own way of making it their own.
For sure.
Because I think it can benefit all ages. Oh, there was one other thing I forgot to mention, and when we were talking about Agnihotra and effects on the mind, I would really love to see Agnihotra being used to treat PTSD, because I feel so terrible. There's so many veterans. We have homeless. Look at all the homeless veterans we have. So many people suffering from PTSD in this country, and to be able to alleviate some of the stress would be just such a powerful thing. And we did have a report. Actually, a woman started Agnihotra a year or two ago. She started it and was hoping that this would have a beneficial effect on her son, who suffered from PTSD. And yes, it did. And he got his own Agnihotra supplies and then began practicing on his own.
That's wonderful. So how do people get in touch with you to get started doing Agnihotra?
Okay. Our website, our main website, is agnihotra.org, and our email is info, I-N-F-O, at agnihotra.org. And the other related websites that I've mentioned, the international website is homatherapy, all one word, .org, H-O-M-A, therapy.org. And the one with all the examples of healing stories is homahealth.com. And for the agricultural reports, and there's a lot of information about gardening, farming, all of that, is homafarming.com.
And do you know if there's been any progress with the studies with over in India with Vandana Shiva? Has there been any progress with that? Or I know that Karen was able to meet with the Indian physicist. Any progress there that you know of?
The last that I have heard, we have proposed doing a project, an Agnihotra homotherapy project, homofarming, at one of her sites. And I know she has a farm, Navdanya. That was one possible site. And there was an initial meeting back in April. And right now, there's another meeting scheduled to actually make a plan. And that's scheduled for sometime in the middle of this month. So we'll have to see what develops from that.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Well, I know I was telling you before the call that I've had a couple of days without Agnihotra, and I can feel the difference, and I have my pyramid all set up for tonight. It really makes a difference. It really does make a difference. And
I absolutely need it.
Yeah, it definitely changes the entire environment, and I can tell the difference having not done it for a couple of days. It's
Speaking of how it changes the environment, there was an interesting story from a family that I knew in Venezuela, and I had visited in Venezuela. I guess that was maybe back in the 80s, and this was in the city, and I mean all the doors and windows had bars on them and things. Crime was always a concern. And anyway, they started doing Agnihotra there, and just across the street from their house was a park, and the park was just a rundown, dirty place. It was trash, and drunks used to congregate there, and it wasn't a safe place. Nobody would want to hang out there or bring their children there. So anyway, after a while after they started doing Agnihotra, their balcony was right across from this park, the drunks left, and people spontaneously started cleaning up the trash and making the park a nice place. And, after a while, it became a really nice place for the community. And they always thought that it was from the time when they started doing Agnihotra that this change came about. And I certainly have heard of other instances where the surrounding area is affected, the people are affected, even if they're not directly doing Agnihotra, but there's a change.
Well, it's reputed that doing Agnihotra will reduce radiation for, 5 acres to 5 miles, and as you say, with resonance, even more. Do you know?
Yeah, that's the general. Well, effects are, we're talking about subtle energy here, and it's really a difficult thing to quantify. But the general thinking is that, when you're doing Agnihotra yourself in your home as an individual, that, maybe 5 acres or so is kind of covered, you could say. But it's really hard. But then there's another aspect to that, in that we're all connecting to this subtle energy grid, because it's always sunrise or sunset somewhere on the planet. So you've got people all over the world who are firing up these pyramids in a progression all around the globe. So that's another effect that's happening. So there are individual effects and there are cumulative effects. And they're not easy to quantify. We may not even have the instrumentation to do that. But I think it's not hard to understand how that would work.
And it still draws down the energy even if you're doing Agnihotra inside? Well,
just as that experiment showed, certainly the strongest effects are in the immediate place where Agnihotra is done. But people do seem to observe effects outside, even if they're doing Agnihotra inside. And then there was, just as I mentioned earlier in the show, there was that experiment where they did Agnihotra and they had the river water in bottles. Some bottles were open, some bottles were sealed, and some were shielded in Faraday cages, which would even block energy from the electromagnetic level. And all of them were showing that the harmful bacteria went down. So if that energy can penetrate through the metal shielding of the Faraday cages, certainly there's something there that's penetrating through solid things. So it's a very interesting thing. I'd love to see more research done on this. We're always interested in talking to scientists.
Absolutely. So you also publish the Satsang newsletter.
Yes.
How long have you been doing that? Did you start doing that with Sri Vasant when it began?
No, he was the editor for a number of years. I'm not sure the exact date. Maybe it was in the late 80s that he asked me to take that on. I don't really remember the exact date. I'd have to look that up.
And so what does the fivefold path, what are the five folds of the fivefold path?
Okay. Agnihotra is the first aspect of the fivefold path, Agnihotra or Yajna, which means purification through fire. So I think we've exhausted that one. I think everybody knows what that's all about. And the fivefold path is really a guide for happy living. That's the point. So, and this can be practiced by anybody. The second aspect is dana, and this means sharing of assets in a spirit of humility. And this is not the same as donation. It's a little bit different because there are certain disciplines to be observed. But if these disciplines are observed, it really leads to two things. It leads to material prosperity, and it also leads to reducing stress about financial material matters. So, to practice dana, we share a part of our income, our possessions, with a person, but there are certain rules about it. The first thing is we have to give to a proper person. Now, any person who's in need of the necessities of life is a proper person. Aside from that, we have to be a little careful. For example, if we give money to a stranger who asks us for money and then they spend it on drugs, and this is pulling them down even more, then we have not practiced dana. We have become a partner in the crime. So we have to use our heads a little bit about how a person is going to use the money. But certainly you can give to any person in need of necessity of life. You can give, food to the hungry, clothes to the needy, that sort of thing. We can give to a holy person who will certainly use the money for or whatever for the benefit of society. And depending on the circumstances, you could even give to a wealthy person who may add his own contribution to it for some good purpose. So you have to use your discretion like that. And the other thing is, if possible, we want to give in secret, or at least quietly, because we don't do it for name and fame. This is not the same as donation. Then you get your picture in the paper about your donation and all that sort of thing. This is, like in the Bible, they say, do not let the left hand know what thy right hand does. So there's an aspect of humility to be, observed in that. So when these disciplines are observed, then we may notice that things come to, and we're not looking for anything in return. That's the other thing. There is no expectation. We're giving because it's our duty to give. As human beings, this is something that we are supposed to do. This is kind of like an ordained practice for mankind. So, and think, if everybody was doing this, what a different world this would be. So when we do this, when we share in the spirit of humility, not looking for anything in return, and to the appropriate person, so the money will be used for a good purpose. But there's two things really that happen. One is that it brings about something. We may find that we'll get something back in return. It will just come to us without any effort on our part. You give, $25 to someone for a proper purpose, and then sometime later somebody comes to you and just, somehow you end up with some $25, $30 benefit or whatever. It just, this has been the observation of many, many people that this happens. And the other thing is, if you're regularly in the habit of practicing dana, then you find you're not so affected by the ups and downs of material things. And, a person can start with just, you don't have to, people will say, well, I don't have much money, my finances are tight or whatever, but even with setting a small amount of money aside, or setting some material things aside, going through your closet, seeing, what of your wardrobe can you part with, something. And once you set it aside, you don't take it back. Okay, that's dana. We're going to find the right person to give this to. It's not mine anymore. So anyway, it removes that tension about the ups and downs of material things. So that takes a lot of burden off the mind. Okay, so that's dana. Then the third aspect is called tapa, which means self-discipline of body, mind, and speech. And it's a way of becoming better managers of our energy, our mind energy, our physical energy. It's looking at our habits. If there are habits we feel that are unhealthy, that are draining us, then starting to move away from these unhelpful things is tapa. And tapa is something, it's an individual thing. You have to decide for yourself what you need to do, what would help you to practice as tapa. And Sri Vasant used to say, choose the minimum of discipline, but follow it scrupulously. So there's no going to extremes, because if we do that, then, I need to, lose 20 pounds, I'm going to fast for 3 days, we don't, then the pendulum will swing the other way, and then we don't really make a steady progress. So by making small changes, making effort in a consistent way, then we start gaining more control over the body, more control over the mind, more control over speech, all these kind of things. So it's discipline of self-discipline of body, mind, and speech to become more efficient managers of our energy. Then there's karma, which many people know as you reap as you sow. So what we want to do is perform right action, but without looking for any result. We just focus on what needs to be done, what we believe is the highest and best action, and we don't look for results. If we're hoping for results, well, then that means we have to stay here on the earth and keep, we have to still be here instead of going on for our soul to be liberated. So long as we are clinging to results, then also we're affected by the ups and downs of how it went, how it didn't go. And also, if we are looking for spiritual liberation, then we are bound as long as we're looking for a result. So in order to free the mind, the idea is to perform right action in a spirit of service, of humility, and non-attachment. Non-attachment, that's a big one. And then the last aspect, fifth aspect of the Fivefold Path is swadhyaya, which means self-study. Who am I? Who is the real person? We say, my body, my mind. Well, who owns the body? Who owns the mind? So searching for the true person is swadhyaya, and that can take many forms. It may be study of scriptures, it may be certain spiritual practices, whatever, that's up for the individual to decide. But any of those things can form swadhyaya, and awareness of observing the thought. And Agnihotra, practice of Agnihotra really goes a long way towards calming the mind so that you can begin to observe thought and become more aware. So that those are the Fivefold Path. And, many people will say that, well, these are principles you can find these same principles in many religions, So it's really pretty common thread for humanity.
So how do your and Richard's day then go? um, incorporating Agnihotra? What's your day like?
Oh boy. Well, see, we are like so very hardcore into this. There aren't a whole lot of people on the planet who are going to go at this the way we do, because we have a lot of disciplines that we follow. And I also want to make this absolutely clear that a person, can do Agnihotra. You don't have to do any of this other stuff that we do. Or you have your own, maybe you have your own spiritual practices, your own religion, your own yoga, meditations, what have you. I don't know. I know people who do all kinds of stuff. But we are, I don't know that it's going to do anybody any good, because we do a lot of meditation timings, and we do chanting at certain times, and we do Agnihotra, and we have a fire temple here in Madison, Virginia, and we do certain hours of other healing fires at the temple. So we have a whole lot going on with that, and there aren't a whole lot of people around who would, that's going to work for their lifestyle. But and that's the really beautiful thing about Agnihotra, is that it's up to you. If you want to try it once, that's fine. If you say, well, I can only do it in the mornings because I work in the evenings, that's fine. If you can only do it in the evenings because you work in the morning, whatever. It's your choice. It's your free will. And it's just as and where you are, it's open to you.
Right. Well, as I said, mine is all set up for this evening, and there are now applications. I know when you and Richard sent me my kit, you sent the time chart for this time zone, and then I was informed about the program that I have on my iPhone that alerts me 10 minutes before, and that's very helpful, I have to say. Although I've been trying to figure out how to get the morning bell louder. I have to set my other alarm as well, because sometimes I would wake up after and go, oh my goodness, I didn't hear that, But it's and what I want to say to people, and people say, oh, why are you doing this? It's one of the things that we ourselves can do, and it seems so appropriate to me in a world so out of balance, that it's a practice that involves the individual, and it also involves the divine. So it reestablishes a relationship between the individual and the cosmos, and I found it definitely makes a difference in my life. Are your children practicing as well? Have they? I know you and Richard have children now who are grown.
2 out of 3.
That's pretty good.
We never insisted. We always made Agnihotra available to the children, and we would call them. We'd let them know, okay, it's Agnihotra time, and they were welcome to sit or not as they chose. And if they just wanted to sit for a minute, that's fine, and then they would just get up and go and play. So yes, 2 of my children are regular Agnihotra practitioners.
And I should mention to you, I haven't started growing it yet, but I found out there's dryland rice, and I'm going to be experimenting with growing out rice that doesn't require rice paddies, as envisioning garden. Yeah, which is pretty amazing. So
it's something actually I've always wanted to do, but we just never got that far with it. So yeah, definitely let me know how that goes.
Yeah, I will, and I will get you the information on where the rice seed is available from, because that's very interesting. Being able to grow what we need and not have to use rice paddies. Lisa, I'd love to have you back again, if you wouldn't mind. And
hey, you're asking me about my favorite subject.
okay, wonderful, wonderful. So please tell everyone again one more time how they can reach you and the Fivefold Path, so they can begin to incorporate this tremendous practice into their lives. It's, there are various products and supplements you can do, and we're working very hard to get scientific technology solutions applied to the radiation and other toxins in the environment. But Agnihotra is something that you can do right now. So would you please, Lisa?
Oh, I'd be happy to. So our website is agnihotra.org, and I want to spell that just to make sure everybody gets that. So it's A Alpha, B Golf, N November, I India, H Hotel, O Oscar, T Tango, R Romeo, A Alpha, agnihotra.org. And our email is info, I-N-F-O, at agnihotra.org. Then
wonderful.
I should also tell the international website for the organizations in different countries, and that is homotherapy.org.
Wonderful. Well, listeners, really I encourage you to begin doing Agnihotra. It's something you can do in your own world, in your own life, to benefit yourself and your family and your community. And it can only help make this world a better place. Lisa, thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, thank you, Lisa. I'm very grateful to be on the show. It's been great.
Wonderful. Thank you. And listeners, to learn how to become part of the Utopian Reality Slope movement, contact White Buffalo Nation at gmail.com and visit wbnslope.weebly.com and our White Buffalo Nation Facebook page, and support the Slope mission at gofundme.com/slope. Join us July 9th at 2 p.m. Pacific time, when our guests will be Royal Solomon and Gary Gosling of Carrot Bars International, who will talk about how to protect yourself and your family's financial future. And then Sunday, July 10th, we'll be visiting with Kent Bingham of the Oasis Village Project and Charles Vaclavic, author of an interesting book called The Origin of Christianity, the Pacifism, Communalism, and Vegetarianism of Primitive Christianity, which is a very interesting book. And now we're going to close with a song by one of our Slope artists, Anton Miserak, called Clear Running Stream. Together, let's save life on planet Earth. That's yours, mine, and all of ours, on and in the land, waters, and air. Thanks for joining us. Till next time, this is Lisa Wolf for Slope. Save life on planet Earth, Earth Aid. Have a wonderful Liberty weekend, and let's give the Earth and all her children freedom from fear, lack, and degradation, and bring a utopian reality now. And to all the people gathered in Vermont to pray for world peace on July 4th, welcome home. Heaven on Mother Earth now. We deserve it, and so does the Earth. Thanks, Lisa.
Thank you. Wow.
All right. Blessings, everyone. Be well.
Fios is not cable. We're wired differently, which means you can get the fastest internet available with equal upload and download speeds from 50 to 500 megs. So you can upload 200 photos before your favorite song is finished. Click the ad and switch to Fios today to get our best offer ever. Fios is not cable. We're wired differently, which means you can get the fastest internet available with equal upload and download speeds from 50 to 500 megs. So you can upload 200 photos before your favorite song is finished. Click the ad and switch to Fios today to get our best offer ever.